Boston College lands a new commitment for the class of 2023, and it's from a land and place that the Eagles have really never been before. We'll get into that and our mailbag on today's Locked On Boston College.
You are Locked On Boston College, your daily podcast on the Boston College Eagles, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This is Locked On Boston College. I am your host, AJ Black here. Happy Friday. It's the weekend, Easter weekend for many of us out there that celebrate. Happy Easter to you. Happy Good Friday. And on today's show, we're going to get into this recruiting news because this is a big one. Boston College lands a commitment from class of 23 athlete Reed Harris. Reed Harris, many of you probably have not heard of before, is an athlete from Montana. Yes, Montana. Boston College has landed a recruit from Montana. So I think this has to be the first commitment Boston College has ever landed from that state. I'd have to really dive into some rosters to find out if anyone has ever come from BC. I mean, since I've been following 2002, 2001, I can't think of any, but I'm sure there's probably I'll get an email from someone from like 1995 or 89 or something where BC landed someone. But Reed Harris, he's 6'4", 200 pounds, and he's listed as an athlete. Now, if you look at his huddle film, he's played everywhere on the field. He was a quarterback, he was a safety, he was a cornerback. What Boston College recruited him for is an athlete that plays wide receiver or tight end. And when I tell you what he can do, you're going to see why I'm kind of really excited that he's coming to Chestnut Hill, or at least he's verbal to come to Chestnut Hill at this point. He's 6'4". He can run a 4.48 40-yard dash. Now, a lot of these kids, they put a little juice into their numbers. Say 4.5, 4.55. He's 6'4" and can run like that. That is freakish athlete material right there. BC has landed a commitment from a kid that has some really special tools that you're not going to find elsewhere. He's the top-rated recruit from Montana for a reason. I don't know. I don't even know much about Montana football. But you get a receiver with that type of size. Think of Tajee Johnson, but maybe even a little bigger than that. With 4.48 speed. That is very, very fast speed for a wide receiver. I mean, like, I'm not sure what Zay runs. I'm sure it's probably a little faster than that, but think of like what Jayden Williams does. Jayden Williams is 5'10". Now put 6-7 more inches on him. That is what you're going to get with Reed Harris. You're going to get a guy that can run with big size. Now, we'll have to see how his hands are. You know, there's all sorts of other little things that you're going to need from a wide receiver. It's not just speed and size. You need hands. You need to be able to run right routes. You know, to be able to get off the line, all that kind of stuff. So it's not just a one-time thing here, but just that type of skill set is very, very interesting because you can line him up as a wide receiver. You know, what cornerback, what 5'10" cornerback is going to be able to stop him? You're going to need to double him up with safeties. Again, a matchup problem. Or you put him at tight end. What linebacker, unless he's an elite speed wide linebacker, is going to be able to slow that down? That is impressive right there. And you can see why the coaching staff probably was salivating to get this kid at Boston College. So Reed Harris is the 6th commitment for Boston College in this upcoming class. And I got to say, he's one of the most exciting. Jayden Sykes is the other wide receiver, and he's got the build of a very typical wide receiver. You know, he's like 6'1", decent speed. He's more of that, like, your run-of-the-mill wide receiver. You got Reed Harris now, and that is something special. Now, obviously, these types of players are the kinds that seem to catch Jeff Hafley's attention because this is the second year in a row that BC has tried to get a recruit with that kind of build. Last year in the class of 2022, BC had a commitment from RJ Maryland, who was, I think, like 6'3", 2 something, but was a wide receiver tight end, good speed, good hands, very, very similar. So I think Hafley likes these types of players, these guys that can do a whole bunch of things. The versatility of them, that he can use them all over the field, whether it's as a pass-catching tight end or a physical wide receiver. Now, again, I'm going to go back to this being from Montana thing because I cannot get over this. Like, I'm just curious how this kid feels about going to Boston College. There's thoughts of last year. There's a couple players that I heard would not come to BC because, maybe they weren't, it was a little bit of a hike. Montana is, California's far. Montana is its own little world out there, right? So I don't know. Like, obviously, we're going to have to wait to see and make sure he gets on campus. This is just a verbal commitment. This does not mean that he is absolutely coming to Boston College, but it's a verbal. Now, this kid has some other offers out there. He was offered by Iowa State, Oregon State. He had offers from Central Michigan, Colorado State, and then his home state, his home teams, which for us don't mean anything, but you got to look into Montana football. I mean, that is a big deal out there. Montana's not FBS, but man, the people from Montana love that. And Montana State, I think, was the other one that offered him. These are big programs out there, and the kids from that area take those schools very seriously. And Boston College was able to get him out of there. So, a good get for Boston College. One that I'm interested to see, where he ends up on this roster, if he ends up at BC or if something else happens. I don't think he's visited Boston College yet, but it'll be an interesting trip across the country to check out a state that's very different than Montana. I've visited Montana a couple times, and I know it's very different, but it's a good get for BC. And I think right now we're gonna start getting that flood. For the next 2 months, you're going to see a bulk of the class of 2023 commit to the Eagles. This is where they usually get their big names. So stay tuned to our podcast. And if you like recruiting news, head over to bcbulletin.com and become a premium member. I give news and nuggets. I had nuggets out yesterday about some new recruits and some of my thoughts about the transfer portal. It's $1 for the first month. And it's only a cup of coffee for every month after that. If you're listening to this podcast, just go to the notes section of this episode, and I have the link right there. Just click it, subscribe. You get access to all my premium articles. You get premium access to our boards and our Discord channel just for premium members, where I put even more nuggets. If you like BC news and you want more in-depth stuff, check out BCB Premium Bulletin. Now, in a moment, we're going to get into the mailbag, which you guys had some great questions this week, and I can't wait to kind of get into them, including some questions about basketball's out-of-conference schedule. We're going to get into basketball, hockey, Conte Forum, but you guys had questions all over the board, and I can't wait to get into all of them. Make sure to check those out in just a moment. Now, if you know me, you know I am a big fan of the Built Bar. It is my go-to treat in the afternoon. It helps me eat right, and it tastes good, and it's good for you. And if you tried the Puffs, I've talked about the Puffs for months now. If you haven't checked them out, you got to check them out. They're the first ever protein-infused marshmallow. They're fluffy, they're marshmallowy, they're not just a protein bar, they're a treat. They're 100% covered in chocolate, and they are delicious. They're soft and gooey, they're good to eat, and they have some great flavors, including the cinnamon churro, coconut marshmallow, banana cream pie. You're going to like these. They're my favorite. They're going to be yours too. Now, the Built Bar has a nutritional value that you're going to check this out, man. 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 4 net carbs, and 17 grams of protein. How are you going to beat that? Simple answer, you're not. And they got flavors that you can't believe are in a protein bar that taste good. The mint brownie, coconut almond, which is my absolute favorite. And new this month, white chocolate cookies and cream. They're all delicious, and new flavors are coming out all the time. And if they think a flavor might be good for you, they'll make it. It will be delicious, and it will be good for you as well. So head on over to Built.com and use promo code LOCK15 and get 15% off your order. Again, head over to Built.com for 15% off at Built.com. And now for a big announcement. Starting Thursday, August 28th, tune into Locked On NFL Drafts, live coverage of the 2022 NFL Draft, with all 3 days of real-time analysis from our extensive lineup of experts and insiders. And for those of you dying to know who your team will take, catch Odyssey and Locked On NFL Mock Draft special hosted by Brian Peacock and former scout Matt Williamson of the Peacock and Williamson NFL show, all week leading up to the first pick. Make sure to check those out as well. This is Locked On Boston College, AJ Black. It's Mailbag Friday. We have some great questions out there for you. And I'm going to give you just a little tease before we get into the mailbag. I am in the process, and I haven't solidified it yet, but I got another great guest coming in about a week that you're not going to want to miss this one either. So we've had Zay Flowers talk to Jack Coleman, who was our guest correspondent last week. We've got another one that's, I don't want to say as big as Zay, but right up there. I think you're going to like this one too. All right, let's just open up that mailbag and get into some of those questions. Now, our first question comes from superfan Abe Ataya Fan Club, and he has something else in parentheses that I'm not going to repeat, but you can find him on Twitter. He wanted to know, could you do an update on the non-conference schedule for B-ball for next season so far? So great question, Abe. And right now, Boston College has their multi-team event already scheduled. They are going to play in the U.S. Virgin Islands Paradise Jam Field, which has some really good. I'm impressed with some of these teams. Belmont, Buffalo, they get to play against Kanye Jones. Drake, George Mason, Howard, Weber State, and Wyoming. And I think Wyoming was a tournament team, and I believe Buffalo was. If they weren't this year, they definitely were last year. So there's some good teams there. They are definitely going to be in the Big Ten tournament, Big Ten ACC championship. Big Ten ACC challenge this year. And if they do it just based off of standings, they're going to play Penn State. I don't think they always do that, though. They could always get like a Maryland or a Minnesota. It's a team around that. Now, they're definitely going to be in it because BC was left out of that. I believe there's a rule in the conference that a team can't be left out 2 years in a row. And BC's not I think they only leave off one team in the ACC because of the conference numbers. BC wasn't last, so they wouldn't be the team left off. I think that's going to be NC State this year. So that will be kind of where they'll get another game. Now, I have to be honest, a lot of the games are kind of in flux. And because BC is a private school, I could FOIA, Freedom of Information Act, a whole bunch of programs, but I'm not going to do that right now. But there's some teams that still have outstanding games, and I'm wondering if they will pop up on BC's schedule. And we'll have to wait to see when the schools announce it. Teams that I know BC still has at home and home that they haven't completed yet are South Florida and Cal. I know those two teams BC played right before the pandemic, and then didn't have their return trip afterwards. So those are two teams I think could be on the schedule at some point. But I'm still hesitant to even say that because you never know. Because of the pandemic, they might have just canceled it. So that could happen. But I will tell you, John Rothstein on Twitter, other than his weird tweets that he puts out all the time with like the Mortal Kombat that he calls the transfer combat, and I mean some of his stuff makes my ears bleed and my eyes bleed looking at it. But he also has some really good info about when teams start to schedule, and I think BC will start announcing. That being said, I have been pushing recently. I want BC to schedule more historical Big East schools. I'd love to see them play teams like Georgetown again, Marquette, DePaul. Like they played DePaul, but play them against St. John's. Those types of schools that they played in the past when they were in the Big East. I'd love to see some of those schools and local teams like Northeastern, URI. They did that. Bring back Providence, Harvard, UMass, you name it. I like the local teams. I'd rather see them than some as I said, South Florida or Cal. I'm not all that interested in those games. So, but thank you, Abe Ataya Fan Club. Now, super fan of the show, Chris wants to know, which line, offensive or defensive, needs to make a bigger improvement next season? Or do you think they both must make a big leap in order for the team to win more than 7 or 8 games? Hint, both is the answer. So I'm kind of torn on here. Here's where my mind is thinking. And I think it's the defensive line that needs to take the next big step. Because I think the offensive line can be just serviceable, and Phil Dracovic will be able to do a million different things as long as he stays healthy. Now, the caveat of that is if the offensive line gets Dracovic hurt, the whole season's crap, right? So if he just does enough to keep him on his feet, I think the offensive line could be fine. The defensive line, they've got to start getting more pressure on the quarterback, and they got to play better against the run. They were not good against the run, and they were 98th in the country in sacks last year. So they need to get more from up front, because last year they didn't. It was not pretty. Like, in terms of getting pressure, they were one of the worst in the country, and I think they got to play better up front. So short answer, defensive line. Long answer, and I will choke on it, is that the offensive line is fine as long as Djokovic doesn't get killed. Also, Chris wants to ask, and for all of you who remember my time at BCI, I used to do a fun little, it was just a joke, and it was very dividing among Boston College fans, and it was Baldwin Jr. When I used to do my final thoughts and predictions on post, I've done the same one at BC Interruption and now at BC Bulletin, where I have my beer, my rap song, which many of you hate, but honestly, I don't care. Sorry, it's my music. I choose it. It's what I like. But I also used to have Baldwin Jr. And if you don't know who Baldwin Jr. is, I don't even know if that's the name of this guy, but it was that blow up Baldwin. And I saw him come back, I think it was 2 years ago, that would like bounce on his head and stuff. And I made Baldwin sound like kind of like he was just kind of crazy and would talk really funny, called Frank Spaziani, Frank Spazamiani, and he did all this crazy stuff. Would he have liked Dave DeGuglielmo is what Chris wants to know. And would Baldwin Jr. like him? Absolutely. I think Dave DeGuglielmo would have liked him and called him like the big fluffy big dog. And I think they would have got along just fine. But thank you for the fun question. I told you, we get fun questions here too. If you guys get funny things that you want to ask me, like why do I hate sesame seed pretzels, whatever. Speaking of which, I went to the spring game. They have salted pretzels now, and they are loaded with salt. They are blood pressure risingly good. I loved them. But I got more questions in just a moment. But first, we need to chat about BetOnline.net. It's your number one source for all your betting stats and sports info. Find all of the latest sports developments, league reviews, and news, including this year's basketball playoffs and the start of the Major League Baseball season. You can make baseball future picks. Are you thinking the Red Sox are going to do it? I was looking at the Toronto Blue Jays numbers. I don't know. I'm feeling the Blue Jays this year. You can go on BetOnline.net and get those future lines right now. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sports wagering information, from live betting to playoffs, esports, and more. So head over to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. Head on over to BetOnline, where the game starts. This is Locked On Boston College, and I want to thank each and every one of you that have made listening to Locked On Boston College your first listen every morning. So if you wake up, you get in your car and you turn on Locked On Boston College, I'm giving you a big bear hug through this microphones. It means a lot, to check us out, to get my news and information from me. It means a lot. So thank you to each and every one of you. And for those of you, I want to send a special shout out to all of you who have recommended Locked On Boston College to your friends and family. Some of you have reached out and have done that, said that you've done that. And I want to thank you for doing that. Word of mouth is sometimes the easiest way, especially with Boston College. Like, I look at my numbers sometimes and I'm going against like Florida and Florida State writers, podcasters. And I'm like, Florida's got like millions of fans and stuff like that. It's tougher for me, but you guys help me out with all the cross promotion you do. And I want to thank you for doing that. But let's head back into the mailbag, because I got some questions on our premium Discord channel. Again, part of our premium service. Ryder424 wants to know, do you think DeMarr Langford is a legit NBA prospect? Including the incoming freshman, who else could be considered NBA prospects on this team? Right now, is DeMarr Langford a NBA prospect? No. If DeMarr Langford continues to improve and become more aggressive and more confident on the court, he could become an NBA draft pick. I don't see him as a first round draft pick right now, so that's tougher. He'll probably go to the G League if he was to do that. But he's got that jump and that like burst that NBA teams love. And Earl Grant's going to make him a nice, well-rounded defensive player as well. But he's got to get more confidence, because there's so many games where he's kind of standing there. And the other players have mentioned it too, where they're like, DeMarr, come on, get more into it, or get yourself more assertive. he needs to get that way. And because you see, when he gets himself going, he is a very, very good player. But he's not to that level of an NBA player yet. So he's got some work to do. And I think that's the best part of him going through this draft process, is that he's going to get that feedback, and hopefully he takes it to heart and learns from it, because that'll make him a better player next year. And we'll see that growth, and that hopefully will be more of an assertive player. And then you ask me this question next year, I might have a different answer. Now, players on the team that could be an NBA draft pick, I mean, the true freshman you're asking me, Donald Hand sounds like a name. I mean, he's a name that I'm very interested to see what he's able to do. And Prince Aligbe's another one. Those two guys I have to see play. And if they live up to what they could be, which are good scorers, well-rounded players, yeah, those guys could be it. But I have to see them at the college level, because so many times you get guys that come from high school programs that end up in the college programs and then just kind of fizzle out. Speaking of which, if you haven't seen, Jarris Hamilton, who used to play for BC, is going to go on to his fourth program. He entered the transfer portal after going to Maryland, Western Kentucky, and now he's looking for a fourth program. That's a side note. Former 4-star, right? Well, on the roster, I mean, if he continues to develop, Jayden Sykes is one I'm going to watch for, because he can shoot from the outside. He can facilitate. He's a good defender. He can score. He's aggressive. He's got that whole package. There's something about him that I think NBA teams are going to like. And it's that real aggressiveness and the way he's kind of, he's out there and he can do a whole bunch of things. So he's my one. I don't think there's anyone on the roster. And I'm not there with DeMarr Langford yet, but I'm not sure he would be even there yet either. I don't see Post going. Bickerstaff, definitely not. Mekhi Ashton Langford, no. I think it's the two that stand out to me right now are DeMarr Langford and Jayden Sykes, and I give Zachary the edge there. And then the freshmen, I want to see what they can do. But that's a great question. Thank you, Ryder. Jay Wenzel asked me a question. I'm gonna go through this one really quick. Jay Wenz 27 says, should the ESPN FPI rankings be a concern, or are they just overlooking BC since they've been mediocre for so long? So Jay wants to know that, and I'm going to have this up on BC Bulletin in the morning. The FBI has BC winning 5.8 games, which puts them around 6 wins, which is kind of the joke that BC always wins 6 wins, whatever. I want to put a warning out there, and I kind of jumped on what the hell is this? Because BC looks better on paper than 6 wins next year. But I'm going to say this. All of these statistical analytics systems, whether it's the FP plus or whatever Bill Connolly's thing is, the FPI, they all have a specific flaw that will not allow Boston College to be analyzed correctly. And that is, they put in the stats from last year. And they put in returning numbers, and I don't know how they do it, but if you get a healthy Phil Dracovic, it does not matter what Dennis Grosel did last year. And it really honestly doesn't matter what Dracovic did 2 years ago, because he's a very different player. He's going to be in a new system. So I don't worry about what the FBI says. I don't really put too much stock into it right now. I mean, it's not that bad. I mean, I looked at like some of the other schools that BC's playing, and I think they're pretty dead on with some of them. But I think right now BC, like when you have your MVP, Phil Dracovic is clearly the most important player on this roster, and he did not play for 10 and a half out of 12 games at his full potential. If he stays healthy, that is very different than a 6-win team. But he's going to stay healthy, and we'll have to wait to see that. So I don't have any worries about it, but BC just has to play better. I got 2 more questions. I'm running out of time here. N. Benoit 151, who's also a great premium user, says, hey, AJ, over under receivers 5 with 30 catches plus. Will anyone break through and be a threat rushing the passer with 8+ sacks? All right. Over under with receivers with 5 receptions. Okay. So I will tell you who I think will get 30+ receptions. Zay Flowers, Jaden Williams, Jalen Gill, Xavier Coleman. So I'm going to go with 4, and I'll go with the under. I think Tajee Johnson might get in there, but will he get 30? That's a lot of receptions. Even when Dracovic was healthy-ish in 2020, they only had 3. So will they get 2 more? I don't see it. I think they're going to try to get the ball to Zay as much as possible. And I'm not even 100% sold on Gill getting it, but I will say 4 and under. And will a defensive lineman get 8.5 sacks? I'm going to sell on that one. I don't think so. I think you're going to see Marcus Valdez probably lead the team in sacks. And I think you'll see Donovan Azaraku jump up, but will he get 8.5 sacks? I don't think I see that. So I'm going to sell on 8.5 sacks for any players on BC. I'm still worried about this defensive line. I still think that's going to be the biggest issue on this team. And until I see a player jump up and do it, I don't think they have the answer right now. And our final question of the night, Bobcat Dan 89. Do you think BC will ever renovate Conte Forum? And how do you think we can improve Conte Forum to enhance the fan game day experience? I think they will. I think they'll eventually renovate some of it. I mean, some of this, it's aging, right? It's not the newest stadium. But what I think they're going to do, I think before they even think of renovating Conte Forum, my guess, and this is just me spitballing, I think they're going to have a hockey-only arena at some point. I think that'll come before they renovate Conte. I think Conte will be the basketball stadium, and I think they're going to move hockey somewhere else, and you'll get your Jerry York Stadium somewhere, or Jerry York Arena. Maybe on the Pine Manor campus or whatever the name of that new school they bought, or they'll find some place to put it. But I think that's going to be before they renovate Conte. How do you make it better? Better luxury box seats, getting fans in. I mean, when I went to Conte Forum as a student, and the place was packed. I'm going to wax poetic about my, back in my day stuff here, but back in my day, when it was filled, it didn't seem like that old, and that it was a little while ago, but I think they're okay there. I think they're going to need to just build, continue to renovate things, add luxury boxes, improve some of the concourses, things like that. I think they'll be fine. And put students on the sides. I'm a big fan of putting the students on the sides like Duke does. And I think it was CDB asked me on Discord as well, who will be Boston College's next hockey coach? And I said Mike Cavanaugh. I'm still sticking with it. I think it's going to be Cavanaugh from UConn. Now, thank you all for your questions. There was a ton of them this week. And if you have questions for me, hit me up on Twitter at AJBlack_BC or on Twitter as well at LockedOnBC, or you can email me at bostoncollegesi@gmail.com. Thank you all again. We'll be back on Monday with Mitch Wolf from Mondays with Mitch. We'll be talking about the NFL draft, Zion Johnson, and everyone else in between. Thank you all for listening, and we'll see you all again soon. Take care.